Here comes the night. Ognian, let's have another round. A chorus of cheers went up from Nadezhda's friends. The mood was high in the tavern. The army was almost ready to move out, ready to take the fight to the barbarians. Ognian set down a tray of drinks on their table and went off to finish lighting the rest of the candles. To Alexander, Valad raised her cup, and the others echoed her, drinking the fine buttered rum fresh from Delev. Mira finished his drink and quickly raised his cup to make a toast of his own. To the little boyar. Again the table raised their cups and drank deeply. The brightly lit tavern felt safe. It felt like home. Talk turned to what they might do after their 2 years were up. Vlad wanted to set up a farm near Delev, trying to encourage the bees back. Nadezhda was planning on making a claim on one of the mines near her family's outpost. Mira was excited by what he'd heard about Renos, and finally revealed that he had hoped that it would be assigned to Varushka when it was claimed. Dushan, youngest and quietest of them, made clear they were planning on staying with the army, until all the Druze were dead. To those who paid, Nadezhda tried to lighten the mood and raised her drink again. The others joined in, slower this time, but drank much deeper. To the Kabul Liktan, Mira made another toast, grateful to the Kabbalists who had brought the heat of Shikal to the forges of Karov. Their cups were almost empty, and Vlad called for another round from Ognian. Another tray was laid down on the table, fresh cups full of the buttered rum. Dushan raised their cup high and looked at each of their friends in turn. To the Emperor, Dushan made their toast quietly, but forcefully. Each drained their cup, basking in the last night of true freedom, before they left and became soldiers of Varushka. Overview. During the winter solstice, 386 YE, the Imperial Senate passed a motion to raise a third Varushkan army in Karov. The motion was proposed by Desislav Sergeyevich Yesin as the proxy of Alexander Zarovich Novosad, the senator for Karsk, and seconded by Mishki Marishka Letachaya as the senator for Karov. The tale of how they turned up with a box full of mithril and dared their fellow senators to deny them has grown in the telling. Is that what really happened? Does it matter? Following the passing of the motion, the territory was enchanted with Hammers of Fury by Kabal Liktan, and then again the next season to ensure that the army would be assembled as quickly as possible. Now, just 6 months later, the army is almost ready to take the field against the enemies of the Empire, but the army's essential quality remains an open question. The grim-faced Schlachter remember the oath made to stand shoulder to shoulder with the Navarre against the threat of the Valorn, and how the Varushkan assembly called on the nation to seek out deals with the dark powers of the land to see that done. The sovereigns that haunt the deep places of the northeast have sent messages with offer of aid and deals. Elsewhere, the stories and inspiration of Ratibor of Temeshwar remain strong in the minds of the ruthless boyars. Alexander Zarovich Novosad, as the raising senator, is responsible for choosing both the name of the new army and its new forte. They should inform one of the speakers for the Senate of their decision during the summit. A name. The new army needs a name, and the task of determining what it will be falls to Alexander Zarovich Novosad. Most citizens are keen for the legacy of the Iron Helms to pass into history. The new army will need a name, one that will echo on the roads of Varushka and that will join the ranks of the Golden Axe, the Northern Eagle, and the lamented Iron Helms. The final decision as to the name lies with the former senator for Karsk, Alexander Zarovich Novosad, but they may wish to take the advice from the rest of their nation to find something suitable for their new army. With the sacrifice of the Iron Helm still fresh in the minds of many, there is a common view in the Vales of Varushka that the senator should not choose to try to recreate the lost army. While nobody can dispute that they were effective at what they did, people are eager to see the new army create its own legacy. There is no way for Varushka to create a cruel or merciless army at present, but even naming the new army after the Iron Helms would be seen as disrespectful given how recently they perished. Perhaps in another decade or two, when the bones of those lost soldiers have been interred in an ossuary and their souls have returned from the labyrinth, there will be another opportunity for the Iron Helms to strike fear into the hearts of their enemies, but not right now. These are times of great change, cousins. Even in death we will finish the work in Thrunin. With cold flesh quickened, we eradicate the Druze on Imperial soil. This shall mark our rebirth. The dark of winter holds no terror over us. Onwards through the snow. Final orders of Alderai the Fair, last general of the Iron Helms. Make this your purpose. The time has come to choose a special quality for the army. The responsibility falls to the former senator for Karsk. 3 sovereigns have offered their patronage, 1 possibly has been presented by those inspired by Ratibor, and there are stories a 4th sovereign may have made an offer as well. Each imperial army has a quality that defines it. The Golden Axe might be dour and pessimistic, but ultimately they represent the legacy of the Vard with their drive to conquer lands. The Northern Eagle are renowned for their frontier lifestyle, with a solid core of expert mountaineers and ex-prospectors who are exceptionally difficult to shift once they have something to defend. The new army will stand beside those 2 armies in embodying the unique Varushkan approach to war. At the moment, like any newly mustered army, the newest Varushkan cohort does not have a quality. They can't take any special orders or actions, but are ripe to gain a new quality once they are battle-hardened. As always, the civil service has consulted with the soldiers, with the Schlachter and wagon raiders, with the wise ones and the veterans of Varushka who in their time weathered their own storms. The result is a list of possible qualities the new army could possess. Then the messengers from the sovereigns came, with their own offers. Some were called specifically, others volunteered their beneficence, but each of them suggests a way they might help. Not all the sovereigns have spoken up so far. Some have kept their own counsel and simply watched to see what happens next. Now, the former senator who originally raised the motion must decide which one they choose. There might be an opportunity to improve equality in the future, much as the Golden Axe did with the support of the Rushkan Assembly, but once chosen, an army's quality defines the essential nature of an army. Most of these qualities come at no extra cost. The nature of the army easily turns to embrace them, but those offered by the sovereigns also require a bargain to be struck. The greatest asset of Varushka are our wisdom and resolve. We send Vaclav Mladenovich Kosti with 50 liao to urge every Varushkan to use our knowledge of the dark powers to choose the lesser of 2 evils. The virtuous apply what they have learned. Vaclav Mladenovich Kosti. Varushkan Assembly, Autumn Equinox 386YE, vote greater majority 280 to 12. Varushka has suffered under the malice of the Druj for too long. It is now time to commit to their destruction. With the liberation of Ossium and the strength to build our 4th army, we intend to raise an army to follow in Boyar Ratibor's footsteps. Do not let anything stand between you and your goals. Light your torches in the enduring flame at Ratibor's gate, as we march to end their threat for good. Ivana Batara Vojevich. Dawn until dusk. New lands. The new Varushkan army could have the conquering quality. Choosing this quality has no additional costs. Ratibor, Boyar of Tenchwa, is rightfully recognised as a true son of Varushka. During the winter solstice 385YE, the Varushkan Assembly upheld a statement of principle from Ivana Batara Vojevich that called on the next army to be inspired by Ratibor's example. To not let anything stand between them and their goals, to ensure that the Druj were ended for good. The recent appraisal into disrupting the Drujish supply has laid out how they might be defeated, how the Seps might be brought to heel by claiming their lands. The new army could be encouraged to take the inspiration of Ratibor of Temshwa to heart and become conquerors, allowing it to take the push-the-line order when attacking. Push the line. The ability of this army to conquer territory is increased by 3/10. Casualties inflicted by this army are reduced by 1/5. The army brings the 1,000 torches of Ratibor to bear on the enemy, dominating key strategic objectives and focusing on claiming territories from the enemy. Take what we will. The new Varushkan army could have the foraging quality. Choosing this quality has no additional cost. There has been a long tradition in Varushka of enterprising bands that seek their fortune by launching forays into barbarian lands to grab whatever riches can be found. The wagon raiders tend to live in tight-knit communities of hard-bitten veteran soldiers, being especially skilled in the use of shields and close-quarter fighting. They are often treated with suspicion. There are plenty of stories of wagon raiders who bring back more terrible things than riches when they return from the deep forests, and some boyars resent warriors who do not answer to anyone and do as they wish. Recent years, however, have seen more young Varushkan choosing to embrace this path. The success of the stinking market in Ossium shows that there is no shortage of creed and reckless bravery in Varushka. At the moment, the Wolves of War regularly offer short-term contracts to wagon raiders to help them reap their rewards while fighting the barbarians. But that same enthusiasm could be harnessed to the service of the nation. The new army could be encouraged to attract wagon raiders and get them to share their expertise with the soldiers. This would give them the foraging quality, allowing them to take the plunder order when attacking. Plunder. Casualties inflicted by this army are reduced by 1/10. The ability of this army to capture territory is reduced by 1/10. The army generates wealth based on the number of victory points generated. The army concentrates on looting enemy forces. They launch attacks intended to capture baggage trains and other financial objectives. They focus on capturing mines, forests, preserves, farms, businesses, manor sites and herb gardens. A portion of this bounty, in the form of money, herbs, crystal mana, crafting material, and potentially even rare materials such as weirwood, mithril or white granite, are claimed by the army general. A necessary evil. The new Varushkan army could have the sellsword quality. Choosing this quality requires a recruiting hall to be constructed. Alongside the wagon raiders, the sellswords of Varushka also have a poor reputation among their country folk. They live rough lives, drifting from contract to contract, and are often greeted with distrust by the people of the Vales. But when there are bandits that need dealing with, or shambling wolves sighted in the nearby woods, they rarely lack for employment. A necessary evil, perhaps. Weighted against that, this model of mercenary work is appealing to veterans and new warriors alike. Like the League, the only nation with a stronger mercenary tradition, the Varushkans could embrace the idea of recruiting sellswords to add their expertise to their new army, making accommodation with their needs and recruiting former mercenaries to help secure the right kind of contracts for work that needs doing. The army could be given the sellsword quality, reflecting their use of expert bands of mercenaries, but also the breadth of Varushka. The largest imperial nation by landmass, there are a lot of people in Varushka, and many of them have very particular sets of skills. The challenge is making sure the general can access the skills they need when they need them. The best way to do this would be to establish a Hounds Hall, a place dedicated to bringing sellswords and patrons together, somewhere well populated or with a strong martial tradition. The best option would likely be Delev, Arthasgard or Kylantsi. It would take a season to build, but as long as it were completed in time, the general would gain access to a special set of orders. Sellsword. The army can use cut them down, plunder, grinding advance, make them pay, and one of either gather intelligence or guard the gate once each per year. The army has experience working with and integrating mercenaries and other independent military units, mostly but not exclusively from Varushka. They take advantage of the expertise they need when they need it through carefully negotiated contracts. The general may employ ruthless hunters, cunning wardens, experienced wagon raiders, armoured guards or veteran Schlachter, but each group can only be employed once each year. The ability to use a specific quality refreshes in the season where the general would be elected. Hounds Hall. Commission type Edifice. Delov, Karav, Ivansgard, Karsk or Kyrantsi, Ossium. 15 white granite, 45 crowns in labour. Effects. Establishes a place for Varushkan sellswords and recruiters to establish contracts. Allow the new army to gain the sellsword quality. Availability. Opportunity is lost if the new Varushkan army takes a different quality. Through the long night. Deep earth. The new Varushkan army could gain the patronage of the Dubik. Patronage of the Dubik would give the army the bloodthirsty quality. Choosing this quality requires a shrine to the sovereign be built in Suvrets. Not a huge amount is known about the Dubik, whose name is spoken in whispers. It is the slumbering one, the one who rests beneath the soil of Volmarts, and whose dreaming spirit is said to move through the forests of Varushka while it sleeps. While the sovereign itself is rarely seen, it has many progeny. The animate, plant-like creatures that share its name and thirst for blood, and inhabit the deepest, most tangled woodlands. They are also known by certain Kabbalists, and one of these mortal servants, calling themselves only a bargainer of the Dubik, visits Tolvoli to extend their bloody patrons an offer of patronage. Acceptance of the Dubik's offer would see the ranks of the new army bolstered by the bloodthirsty children of the Dubik. The sovereign still sleeps and dreams, but the Cabal has located a place where its power is strong, an abandoned outpost in eastern Suvrits, all that requires of the old vale of Karastavaya. If they have the stomach for it, The outpost could be repurposed for use by the Cabal. If a shrine was constructed there, then the bargainers of Dubik would be able to treat with the Dubik of the forests, and continue their study of the Sovereign itself. Several members of the Cabal would join the army and provide support, and the general would be able to call on the Dubik no matter how far from Varushka's borders they wandered. These wolves would need to be kept on a tight leash, lest they prey on the army's allies, and they are known to have a particular taste for the blood of changelings. But the general would be able to make use of the monsters when attacking, unleashing them to slaughter the enemy, to drink them dry, or they could feed and cultivate the beasts when defending, allowing them to harvest valuable consumables that only the Dubik can provide. If the Shrine of the Dubik was created, then the army would become bloodthirsty. The general could issue the Bleed Them Dry attacking order, or the Gather Blood order when defending. Bleed Them Dry. Casualties inflicted by this army are increased by 3/10. Casualties suffered by this army are increased by 1/5. The army takes every opportunity to engage with the enemy to try and cut them to pieces. They are accompanied by bloodthirsty Dubik and other creatures of the Sovereign that feast on the hot blood of the enemy. They may claim some territory, but this is secondary to their goal of spilling as much enemy blood as possible. This emphasis on engaging the enemy means that the army loses more troops itself, but the commitment to fighting and preparations it takes means that it still suffers comparatively less than the opponent it engages. Gather Blood. The army generates consumables based on the number of victory points generated if they are victorious. This order does not change army strength, casualties inflicted, or casualties suffered. The army concentrates on acquiring blood from the surrounding area to feed to the wolves that accompany the army, provided they are not needed to defend the territory. The Dubik produce substances that can empower the soldiers in return, and a portion of this bounty is passed to the army general so that they can make the most appropriate use of it. If the army is victorious, then for every victory point generated during the defence, the general receives 2 doses of dark wine and either a dose of blood vine or a black blood thorn, determined randomly. These are the same rare substances associated with the Dubik that are collected by the Tolvoli Butcher. Shrine of the Dubik. Commission type edifice. Location Suflitz Voldemorts. Cost 50 in white granite, 45 crowns in labour. Effect. Establishes a place for the bargainers of the Dubik to make offerings to the Sovereign. Allows the new army to gain the bloodthirsty quality. Availability. Opportunity is lost if the new Varushkan army takes a different quality. Might and Magic. The new Varushkan army could gain the patronage of the Charnel Lord. Patronage of the Charnel Lord would give the army the Brannock-born quality. It is not known yet if the patronage of the Charnel Lord requires any additional effort. An emissary of the Charnel Lord will visit Anvil at 11:15 on Friday. Last season, Tazea of the Black Feathers, servant of the Battlefed, sent word that her master was pleased to hear from Ardray the Fair and Magnus the Kind at the winter solstice. Tazea requested that Morrigan Mortair of Dawn host a meeting between the 2 Varushkans and Ploticost of the Needlejaw, one of the many loyal servants of Mound Shroud, to discuss terms of patronage. Ploticost will arrive in Anvil on the first night of the summit and will go to the Mortair camp in Dawn to negotiate what the price of such patronage might look like. Tazea of the Black Feathers is at pains to make clear that such a meeting will need to take place over the heart of one recently slain in battle. If the discussions go well, then the new army could take on the patronage of the Charnel Lord and become Brannock-born. If that happens, then the army would be able to take the Grinding Advance order when attacking and the Arcane Consolidation order when defending. It would also secure the favour of the Charnel Lord for the army, a nebulous quality, but one that from time to time was of use to the old Iron Helms, while occasionally producing problems of its own. Grinding Advance. Casualties suffered by this army are reduced by 3/10. Casualties inflicted by this army are reduced by 1/5. The army slowly advances, consolidating every game before moving forward. The army looks to avoid direct engagements with the enemy, ceasing their advance and taking defensive positions if they are engaged. Arcane Consolidation. The army generates mana crystals based on the number of victory points generated if they are victorious. Does not change army strength, casualties inflicted, or casualties suffered. The army concentrates on making magical preparations, shoring up their reserves of mana crystals, and seeking out nearby sources of magic, if they are not needed to defend the territory. A portion of this bounty in the form of mana crystals is passed to the army general so that they can make the most appropriate use of it. They gain 7 mana crystals for each victory point that they generate on defense. Endless Strength. The new Vrushkan army could gain the patronage of the Howling Queen. Patronage of the Howling Queen would give the army the Accursed quality. Choosing this quality has no additional costs. The Howling Queen will provide the general with a Bloodfire Parapet each year as a symbol of their support. Last season, the Stenza of Tears visited the Vrushkan camp in Anvil to discuss patronage of the army, amongst other things. The offer was laid out to the senators of the nation that the Howling Queen would offer patronage of the army. The Stenza of Tears, on their way back along the roads to Vrushka, spoke to a civil servant outside the Castle of Thorns. They wished to clear up a few uncertainties around the offer made. The Howling Queen will definitely not share patronage of the army with any other being, but if the Vrushkans take up her bargain, then she will send her Plague Wolves to support the army. The new army could accept the patronage of the Howling Queen and become accursed. The army could benefit from emergency resupply, regardless of what territory they were in or whether they were engaged by the enemy. Furthermore, they could take the Gather Husks order when defending. Gather Husks. This is a defending order. The ability of this army to defend territory is decreased by 2/5. Casualties suffered by this army are decreased by half. The army recovers an additional 250 strength in emergency resupply. The army spreads across the territory, ready to receive further support from the Howling Queen. Husks are sent to the army under the thrall of Plague Wolves to reinforce the soldiers. The Night Below. The new Vrushkan army could gain the patronage of the Night Below. The details of this patronage are couched in unclear terms. It is not clear if this bargain has any requirements. Finally, there are rumours across the nation of a peculiar offer made by a phantasm that apparently promised a way to make the army immortal, unkillable, and unharmable. The story goes that the phantasm has promised that, as long as Fly the Light was the only patron of the army, their shields of their army will neither splinter, nor their armour ever rust. The soldiers will neither age nor fall in battle, no illness will ever befall them, and they will know no pain nor suffer hunger or thirst. Another story. Is there truth to it? It is not clear that this offer is even real. If it is, then only the newly appointed general of the army could accept it. Unfortunately, nobody seems to know who the offer was made to, if it was made at all. And if it was made, then presumably the people who received it will know what is required to gain that patronage if the general wishes to take it. Further reading. Imperial Army, Army Qualities, Night Below, Charnel Lord, Tales of the Howling Queen.